Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are going to be giving you our best updated V2 new player / best practices guide for free-to-plays. Now, bear in mind, anything that you do beyond free-to-play, just kind of take that with the fact that you'll be able to do it faster if you decide that you want to spend money. Now, we're going to take a little bit of time talking about quite a few areas here. Again, I like to try and be as detailed as we can, so that way we have an opportunity to explain things as thoroughly as possible without kind of just giving you like 10 or 15 highlighted points with some snippets of information. Now, there will be some areas that we can kind of go through a little bit faster than others, and that usually is because they're a little bit more straightforward in what we're talking about or kind of what you need to do or action. So, with all of that out of the way, again, I'll also have a link to the best practice guide outline that I've made, and you'll find that in the description pinned comment below as well. Okay, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get right into it. So number one is going to be civilizations. Let's talk about civilizations with who should you be starting. You got Spring Wardens, League of Order, and Wilderburg. My view on this is going League of Order as your start, predominantly because of two main important parts here. One, overall gather speed is plus 10%. You don't get that with Spring Warden, as you can see here. Along with the transport units, they're only increasing march speed. When you look at Wilderburg, you're not really getting anything that's kind of focused on economy or progression generally. Same thing with their transport units, which are T1 cab units technically. You do get extra resources when you exhaust a resource point. However, when testing this and when getting feedback from players that have used both factions, they were still telling me that they liked the fact that League of Order had the 10% overall gather speed on top of having an increased load capacity. And essentially what this means is that you're able to gather higher level tiles faster, right? You're able to essentially do a full gather on these sooner than you would with another faction because of the increased load capacity, right? So one troop could be gathering 6 resources for League of Order, Spring Warden, or Wilderburg could be gathering 2 resources per one unit, right? So again, thinking of it like that, you're able to gather faster, along with being able to gather higher tiles a lot sooner, or we could just say sooner. Now, when it comes to kind of late game, I essentially, right, so this kind of top point 2, sub 2 here in Civilization. Late game, for me, I in short define it as you having all of your buildings at max level, and you either having all of your tech at max level, which means you have T5 unlocked, or you are at max T4, which basically just means that you've done all your tech research up until T5, where the very last thing you have to do is just click T5 and click research for each of the units. Once you get to that point, that is what I define as late game, because once you get there, you are now not having to spend or have outgoing resources that you're using from all the resources you've gathered to upgrading buildings and or tech, and now you're able to focus your resources on spending specifically for PvP, whether that's training troops, healing troops, or anything else that you might end up spending, for example, things like in the Goblin Market or the VIP store. Okay. Now, let's get to number 2, which is building priority. So building priority for me is pretty straightforward, right? Of course, you always want to be looking at your Hall of Order, and you want to look at what your prerequisites are or your requirements to upgrade to the next level. However, before you get here, there's 2 buildings that you must upgrade before you get to this point. The first is your Alliance Center. Important. Why? Because you want to be able to increase the number of helps that you're going to be able to get. Additional helps will increase research or building time for your buildings and or your tech in your academy, or as depending on what faction you are, right, mine's College of Order. Then the second building you're going to upgrade before your requirements / prerequisites is College of Order. Why? Because you want to be able to, it's kind of a two-parter. One, you want to be able to increase your research speed bonus, which is going to help you researching text faster, on top of eventually getting to other text, which we're going to do in a moment. I'm actually just going to speed through this, mainly because of the fact that we have already, we'll do this a little quick here. Everyone's like, oh, I'm already at max helps for this, so it's not really a biggie. And we'll just use a 15-minute and go fast. Okay. Then the second part here is that you want to be able to take advantage of certain text within, right? But again, before we were going to get to that in a moment. And then eventually you'll go ahead and get to Hall of Order, and then you'll upgrade what the requirements are, and you'll kind of rinse, wash, and repeat. Now, let's briefly show you what those requirements are before we get to talking about what specific techs you're going to focus on in your College of Order or your academy. So this is going to be, let's do this, right? Bam. So this is your order. You can kind of take a screenshot of this. However, it's also going to be in the best practices guide outline that I have as well. And so this is your order that you're going to use when you're upgrading. Now, bear in mind, some of the names for these will be different. You'll kind of just have to tomato it depending on what faction you're choosing. But this will at least help you kind of know what you need to do as far as that's upcoming. So yeah, okay. Let's go back now to our next one. So next point we're going to touch on here is going to be max helps, right? And this is a short one. Essentially, you do not want to use speed ups until you have max helps. The way to figure this out is by going to your alliance, clicking help, and then you can see how many helps you have per. So this is something that you would want to do. As an example, you can see I'm upgrading a lumber mill. I just got done upgrading that. But for again, if I wanted to, I could go in here and use my speed ups now. Why? Because I already have max helps. Now, something I'd love for them to be able to do is if I'm upgrading something, I'd love for them to have a little icon here that shows me how many helps I have. So that way I don't have to go that deep into the alliance and click helps. This is just a little bit easier for me. Or if, for example, there was a bar here that showed you what you were upgrading and then the number of helps, kind of like a little, like a small mini interface, that could be cool as well. Okay. Now let's get to number 4, which is our College of Order. So we're going to kind of go through this pretty straightforward here, right? When you're starting out, you predominantly want to focus on architecture. And where's my architecture? So you want to focus on architecture and scholarship. So architecture is for building speed and scholarship is for research speed, right? So these are essentially the two techs that you want to focus on upgrading and getting to, right? So you can see here, I'm close. I could probably go ahead and start researching this now, which actually wouldn't be that bad of an idea. We'll just bam, get a little green there. And now you can see I'm finally doing my last scholarship, which is fantastic. And then I can kind of start getting to some of the other things. Because this is going to help you essentially progress as fast as you can by predominantly focusing on getting to these two techs, which means that as you're working your way to these techs, you're probably going to have to research other prerequisites or other requirements, and that's okay. But the focus should be on trying to get to these techs and then not using your speed ups on anything else, right? Essentially until you have scholarship to max, in my opinion. Now, I think it's okay if you want to use speed ups on maximizing architecture and scholarship techs, but outside of using speed ups on anything else, you want to wait until you have scholarship to max, because then you're getting the max reduction from what you can get outside of things like runes from going and attacking Darkling Warriors or guards, where you can speed those up as well, and then any other kind of outside or external factors that are not applicable kind of within or internally in your city. Then from there, I think the next one is going to really be like supply chains for me. So supply chains is going to be increasing, and I have to find one now because I'm blind, clearly. Here we go. So supply chains is increasing overall gather speed, right? So you have supply chains 1, and then you have supply chains 2. These are the things that you really want to kind of focus on getting to next, because it's going to increase overall gather speed for you as a free-to-play. It's going to be a lot better. And then kind of going in order of next ones, I like breath control. Because this is for CP recovery, and then also stamina, right? Because this is increasing your max CP. And the great thing about that is by increasing your max command points, it's going to take, you're going to be able to have a longer downtime where you're not going to have to, for example, get online every 5 or 6 hours because your CP is recovered already. Right now, you'll be able to go maybe 9 or 10 hours as an example, right? Give or take, where you can sleep for your 8 hours. You don't necessarily have to worry about your CP recovering all the way, and then you're still good to go. So doing those things is going to allow for you to kind of extend your downtime window where you're not able to do anything and your CP is maxed and you're just kind of wasting that because you're not using it. So those types of things, or at least until you wake up, right? So those types of things I think will be next. And then we have military leadership. This is going to be, wherever my military leadership is, here we go. That's going to be increasing your hero XP bonus. So those are going to be the next ones, 1 and 2. And then weak points for me would be the next one, which is where you're then going into things like peacekeeping damage. That's going to help you essentially attack higher level Darklings and allow for you just to do a little bit more on that front. And then we have things like RSS production tech, and then Legion capacity increase tech. And those are going to be, where's my RSS production? So something like this, Land of the Plenty. And then, as we mentioned, your increasing Legion capacity, which is going to be your, oh gosh, I think it's container upgrade. And then that'll probably be the next one. Now, when we go on the military side, I think conscription 1 and 2 is going to be the most important, which is increasing your training speed. So you're talking about these ones to essentially train a little bit faster. And then at that point, you're just kind of min-maxing, right, to T5 or max T4. Okay, now let's get to heroes. So heroes, for me, is pretty straightforward. Free to play, you should be focusing on gathering heroes. So we're talking about heroes like Indus. We're talking about Pan. So you see Indus here. Pan's going to be here. And then you're going to look at heroes like Chakcha, Kella, and then eventually Ordo. These are kind of your 5 bread and butters, and that's because these 4 are all gathering, so they have gathering trees that you can dive into. And then Ordo, even though he doesn't have a gathering tree, he does have a research skill as skill 3, which is increasing gather speed, mana, and load capacity. So there is some value there for being able to focus. I'm sure eventually a 5th gathering hero will come out, but these are kind of the 5 to focus on. And then when it comes to the actual gathering trees, I'll give you a brief look at this one. The cool thing about CoD is you can, well, again, I'm sure some other games have this, but in CoD you can double up on rows. So as an example, when you get past your foundational talents, right, and this is kind of how I build mine. Earth's Grace is obviously really important because you get EXP from the amount of resources that you gather, but there's a limit per day. However, you can stack talents. As an example, you can see I have an Earth's Grace here, I have Earth's Grace there, and I also have Earth's Grace here, right? And those things just kind of help you max out your gathering heroes a little bit faster, allows you to dive deeper into the tree and get there sooner. But eventually when you get here, you're going to see things like increased gold gather speed, increased wood gather speed, increased mana gather speed, and then increased ore gather speed, right? So trying to kind of get those 4 maxed over a period of time after you work your way up the tree. I personally like to go with Windfall, which is receiving additional rewards when your Legion depletes a resource point. So for me, I think that's ideal, but just to kind of show you some things that you can do on the talent tree. And then really when it comes to things like skills, the best way I usually like to go with this is to try to upgrade and get your heroes to a level to where you can unlock their gathering skill. So let me give you an example. If you are, where's the thing here? So you can see that these are unlocked. So once you get to level 10, it unlocks your 2nd skill. Level 20 unlocks your 3rd. Level 30 unlocks your 4th. So you basically need to get to the level that is going to unlock your gathering skill. And then once that happens, you can kind of hang out there without starring up. Because once you get to 10, you'll have to obviously invest some stars so you can then get to the next unlock level in order to get your next skill. And then from here, you're just going to invest your points, right, specifically into, or basically having a chance of, right? Because if you have 2 unlocked and you're investing skills, then it can go into one or the other. But the odds are better than if you unlock a 3rd skill, and now you're kind of dealing with like a 1/3 chance compared to a 50% chance, right? So the idea is you want to try and max out your gathering skills as soon as you can, and then you can kind of worry about the next ones that you need. Now let's talk briefly about PvE. So attacking PvE is pretty simple. The best way to really do this is, and we've done a lot of data. I have to give a big shout out to my buddy Framsham, who did a lot of math on this earlier. We covered this in a previous video. Is you basically want to just keep attacking the highest level Darkling unit that you can. Right? Do not worry about trying to go out there and maximize your CP usage to stay out as long as possible. You just want to keep attacking the highest Darkling level that you can, even if you can only attack 1 and then you have to go back to your city and replenish troops and go back out. That is okay. The math that we did, there's more value in that until you're able to, for example, get to level 25, and then you can go out and sustain as much as you want. Next, for PvP, is the short version here on PvP is when you're free to play. Personally, I think you can either look to, and I kind of hate to even say this, but you can look to attack, for example, if there's, inactive players that you just know for a fact just aren't the same level, they don't move at all, they've been gone for a week, 2-3 weeks or whatnot. If you really feel like you need to, then yeah. The other side of it is just joining in on organized PvP, or if there's war games that your kingdom does, or if you guys are doing some form of like merit keep farming, if you have a farm that you're running and you're building it up, or however many, and you just want to kind of go back and forth and attack troops there. Those are things that you can do to gain merits. When using merits, going to the store is here, and then you go to Alliance Store, then you click on the second tab, which is for merits. Basically, you just want to try and focus on, I would say, speed-ups and like the 24-hour gathering stuff is really, the big ones for me that I think are going to be the most important. So like these are the speed-ups here, and I think these refresh, but I would say speed-ups and gathering tools, not tools, but buffs. Those are things I think, and then obviously if you can grab gold keys, right, those would be other things as well, or if there's like legendary medals and not the epics, because eventually you're going to max out all your epics, but those are some of the items that you would probably want to look at a little bit more first before you then start grabbing others. Okay, let's talk about policies. This is going to be the next one. So policies for me are, once again, kind of pretty straightforward, I think, when you're just thinking about the, what are we going to be upgrading? And from here, we will, let's grab this one, bam, bam. Okay, so policies, you're going to click here on your building for notice board. You're going to click on the chair. And policies for me is going to be things like resource gathering, I think are really important. So you'll probably do resource gathering 1, and then we're going to end up going into resource gathering 2, right? And you can kind of see the trend here where we're really focusing on trying to kind of max out economy overall, because really this is probably your most important area when it comes to speed boosting your general progression, right? Because nobody essentially is going to want to take longer to level up and progress, especially if you're trying to get to your max building, close to your max tech, if not your max tech level. All of these things are really going to factor in. Then we're going to talk about war studies, or next, right, where you're kind of looking at your hero EXP bonus. This is something that we mentioned as well when you're talking about upgrading your academy tech, even though, yes, you're probably going to get to that one a little bit later over there in your academy versus doing it here in policies. And then you're going to do military expansion. Military expansion is going to increase your legion capacity. This is also going to help with resource gathering for higher tiles, etc. And you're going to do military expansion 1, we'll do military expansion 2, and then eventually military expansion 3. Next, we're going to talk about targeted tactics. So this is going to be increasing peacekeeping damage. Again, you're noticing probably a similar trend for academy tech versus policies. And then we're going to do artifact expertise, because I think eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to do this. And then while you're going through here, right, I would recommend focusing on elixir production speed versus daily resource healing, right? So you're increasing your elixir production to essentially heal more. Now, with the daily resource healing, right, this is where you can increase the amount of troops that you're healing in your hospital based on spending resources. Elixir speed is something that you're gaining for free. And my recommendation, especially if you're free to play, is you take this and you dive into the route of going elixir production speed versus daily resource healing, right? So that's something I think would be great. Then we look at something like a Dragon Trail, for example. And Dragon Trail is going to be where do I have this here? Sorry, trying to do a little bit of brief multitasking without having too much of a delay. So you're going to click on your button there, which is next to your alliance. We'll then click on Dragon Trail, which is going to be next for us. And here we will, where's my thing? If I can, bam, bam, there we go. So for Dragon Trail, you're mainly going to be, and this is kind of simple, this is almost like your expedition in Rock. You're just going to try and grind these star levels out as fast as you can, right? You want to check these daily anytime you are upgrading hero levels, if you're getting a next tier unlocked, if you're just from training more troops, you're able to fill out your legion capacities more. This is where you want to check on this daily in order to make sure that you are progressing as much as possible. Why? Because here you're going to be able to do things like gaining loot, which is really important, especially if you are looking to try and upgrade your for example, you're going to get your prestige here, which you're going to end up using for policies. You need that in order to upgrade policies. So the more that you do, the faster you can upgrade those policies. You're also going to get dragon glass coins, which you're going to be able to then use in the store. This is also one of the best ways, essentially the only way for free-to-play to unlock Indus, right, which is one of the gathering heroes for Legendary. So doing this as much as possible, along with just taking advantage of other things that you can get in here, right? You'll notice speed-ups, tokens, etc. Those are important. However, my recommendation is to focus on Indus first and then go ahead and work on upgrading other pieces. Okay, Now let's get over here to, if we can, hopefully this is the last little brief one. Okay, hopefully that's the last one I have to do. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Next one is going to be talking about the VIP. So VIP store is, well, let's talk about VIP first, then we'll talk about the store. So when you're going into VIP, you're going to go store here. This is your VIP. Important parts is VIP 5 is the first one you want to try and get to. Why is that? Because on VIP 5, you are getting your, oh wow, did they switch this up? Wow, never mind. They actually switched this up. I guess it's VIP 4 now. It was VIP 5 where you get your first epic hero, but never mind. Now it's actually VIP 4. Fantastic. Look at that. It actually happens a little sooner now. Okay, cool. So VIP 4 is the first one, because you get your daily epic. And then as we continue down the tree, you're going to end up noticing that your first legendary will happen at VIP 8, right? You're also going to get your second research queue permanently unlocked, which is really important if you want to try and kind of speed upgrade or speed through your tech. Next one is going to be VIP 9, which is where you end up getting a daily gold key, right? And that's kind of a nice minimum to get to. There are, of course, other ones, but I would say if you're free to play, it's already going to take you a minute to kind of get here. But trying to, and what I mean by this is my view on using your gems is using all of your gems on VIP, because these are passive buffs and bonuses that you're going to have forever, right? They're not temporary things that are lasting for a short period of time, or are you trying to gem up a building or through a research tech or something like that. My recommendation is any and all gems should be going into VIP, with the exception of using your gems to unlock your second builder, right? So I believe it's 5k gems that you need. Someone can correct me on that. I think it's 5k. I want to feel like it's not 3k, but 5k. So we're going to go with 5k for now. It's kind of a soft hard that we feel, but there's, with the number of gems that you need, that should essentially be your first unlock, right? Is getting to that second builder and then focusing everything on your VIP. Lastly, we're going to touch on the store. Store is pretty straightforward, right? You essentially kind of want to max out the things that you can get with resources, which for me, I'm at VIP 12, so you can see there's not a lot beyond that. I don't know if some of those will cost resources, but for the ones that do, my view on this is when you're starting out, getting your 5-minute speed ups, and then your legendary medals, and then you can go things like basic recovery and then maybe epic medals last, or you do epic medals and then basic CP recovery last. But I value the 5-minute speed ups and the legendary medals before I do basic CP or epic medals, in my view. All right, then let's talk about events. Events are actually a little bit better now because they added in an event calendar. So for example, you are now able to look at what your weekly preview is going to be from the event calendar. This to me is great because you can plan out essentially what you need to do and how to prep for upcoming events. It also allows for you to click on them. You can kind of get a little bit of information. The cool thing is it'll actually link you as well. So you can see breaking through here, breaking through there. If I click on this and click go, it automatically takes me there. So I really like the interface, and you can scroll down and you can kind of see what's already been done, the things that are upcoming in blue, what is currently happening here in kind of an orange color. But this allows for you to prep and make sure that you have either resources ready, you have enough troops to do things, etc. So make sure you go through this, and I believe this resets every Tuesday. So you can see here, right? So that means that Monday at like 23:59 UTC going into reset, which would be 0:00 on Tuesday, right, is when you can look at what's coming up for the next week. So make sure that you take advantage of that. Next is we're going to touch on artifacts. So artifacts for me is pretty straightforward as well. There are a few that you're really going to focus on. So there's 6 I have for you. We're going to kind of show these going from legendary all the way down. So we have ancient tree roots, which is going to be the first one that we'll touch on. And because I don't have everything memorized yet, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, because we're a bunch of bummy people. So here we go. Where am I going? We're going to find it. Bam, here we go. Ancient tree roots. So Ancient Tree Roots has Legion load capacity on it, and bear in mind, this is when you get these things unlocked, of course, right? I'm not saying prioritize legendaries. It's kind of more of like, hey, when you get these unlocked, then you can go ahead and start using them. Even though this says gathering, right, there's really nothing gathering specifically about it. I wish that things that said gathering, in my opinion, now Legion load capacity does help, right? It's not like it doesn't, but I just wish that those things actually had gathering speed, in my opinion. So, but maybe that's just a little bit too biased, more preferential in that case. But Legion load capacity is similar to what we talked about with the League of Order transport units having increased Legion load capacity. Those are things that are going to help you gather higher level tiles fully sooner. Then we get to Lucia's Horn. Now, Lucia's Horn, I believe, is Bam. Nope, it's not. That's actually a Fang, not a Horn. It was the first one. Okay, so Lucia's Horn is probably the one that you see here where it's gathering, and then you have overall gather speed, right? So these are things that you would really want to use when you, this is probably a priority for me, when anything that essentially has gathering speed in it, you should be attaching that to your heroes that we mentioned before, so you can just get those things going a little bit faster, right? And then what we'll end up doing here is the next one, we're going to have Greenfinger Sickle. This is an epic. And where do I have you? Sickle. Here we go. So Greenfinger Sickle, this, even though this increases Legion load capacity, you immediately gather a specific number of resources here just from clicking the skill, right? And I don't, I don't know, Bakshi's on it, so I can't really kind of show you that. But what I can show, I can kind of show it to you. So you see the skills that are here. Each of these units are out gathering resources, you can see right now. If I was to, for example, have Greenfinger Sickle attached to one of these units, or one of these legions, I could click it. It would be bright, right? Not dark or grayed out. I would click it. It would immediately gather that number of resources from that tile, which allows for me to start gaining resources and gathering a little bit faster. Next one is going to be Illusory Gems. And I think this is a, where's my gemmers? Bam. So Illusory Gems, this is a elite artifact, but you get a Legion load capacity increase from this. The next one is going to be Enchanted Coins. This is an overall gather speed that you have from this one, so it's kind of an all-rounder, even though it's an advanced. And then the last one is going to be Stormleaf. Stormleaf is giving you Legion load capacity increase. So the three that give you, or the two we should say, that give you gather speed is Enchanted Coins, right? And then Lucia's Horn. And then the third one that I like is Greenfinger Sickle, because it allows you to immediately gather resources. And then again, it's on a 12-hour cooldown, but you know, it is probably your next best one outside, because it also gives you Legion load capacity as well. There's just not enough artifacts at the moment that allow for gathering speed, so hopefully more will come down the line, right? Because you really only have 2 for essentially up to 5 legions once you get to a 5th legion. Next, we're going to talk about a Scout Camp. Scout Camp for me, pretty straightforward on this one, which is just really, you know, I would say for this one, kind of upgrade it as you go. I don't think that this is because you're going to eventually have Scout Camp as a requirement for a higher level. And I have to remember which one that is. Let's see. So Scout Camp level, going to level 6, you're going to have to do Scout Camp, and then 17. So that's why you see me at 17. Sorry, going from 17 to 18. So to get to Castle 18, you're going to have to upgrade your Scout Camp to 17. Right? So eventually you're going to get there with your Scout Camp. If you focus on min-maxing your castle level to 17, you're going to get to where you really want to get to with being able to unfog the map a lot sooner. Bearing in mind that you are going to unlock a 3rd right at level 11, and then really once you kind of get here, you're fine. You can see I haven't upgraded my Scout Camp since. You can pretty much search the remainder of the map a lot faster, but just kind of focus on min-maxing your castle level along with those other building requirements. And also just keep in mind, there's quite a few things here to the Scout Camp, so just make sure you're always clicking on the map or looking at all of these areas and just essentially doing everything, right? Is the best advice. Next is going to be Goblin Market. I don't know if I have anything. Oh, fantastic. Goblin Market is still here. Lovely. So for Goblin Market, you're going to want to focus on rows 2, right? So you have 4 rows here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. My recommendation on essentially short version is buy everything in here that costs resources. And the kicker is for things that you still need, right? So kind of assess what you have. If you're going through and you're buying everything that costs resources and you're doing that every day for, let's say, a couple weeks straight, eventually you're going to get stockpiled on things like buffs, or like these, like the RSS buffs. You'll eventually be stocked on things like epic metals, etc. You just may not always need to keep buying those things. So just pace yourself and kind of take an account for your inventory. But the order that you want to go here is what I recommend is 2, because I think speed ups here are probably the most important. 3, which is going to be for your general buffs. 1, and then 4 lastly. And that's because usually the only thing you're going to get here on 4 is eventually your legendary medals. You're going to, of course, buy epics early on. But once you get to a point where you've been playing long enough, you're going to have so many epic medals that the most important thing really is going to be your legendary medals, and you're not going to necessarily have to buy epics. So my recommendation is that if you ever see a legendary medal that pops up, buy that first and then do an epic. So yeah, and then of course make sure you use your free refresh, right? Because you do get 1 free refresh a day. I don't recommend using refreshes for gems if you're free to play, which is again kind of where we're focusing this guide on. Where are we at time-wise? Well, I'm already at 30 minutes, man. I actually thought I'd been going through this pretty decently. Let's see here. So we have our next one is going to be villages. So villages is something that you can access when you join an alliance. And well, let's just go here. So you'll see villages up here top. You can see my village management screen. If I click here on the bottom right, you can see these are all the villages that we have as an alliance. They're sorted by level, or sorted by level and village type, right? So usually one of the things you can do is you can go like this, right? I can go 10. Well, I can see the occupiers are 20 out of 20, so I'm not going to be able to do anything there. Can't do anything at 9. That's 30 out of 30. Level 8, 40 out of 40. Level 7. So there's some openings here if I wanted to increase elixir, but maybe I don't really want to increase elixir. So you can see there's more. Let's go to 5. Okay, so this could be something that I might want to do a little bit more of, right? Maybe I want a little bit more hero EXP, or maybe I want to do a little bit more damage, right? You can kind of see what the percentage effects are. So let's just say I want more hero EXP. So I'll click on here, I'll click raid. It says raiding a level 5 village will cost 40 stamina. I'm going to confirm. And then basically you're going to get a 3-minute timer to come out and defeat this Darkling, Sentinel, and then you'll get then you'll be one of the occupiers. So bear in mind that before, and this is probably important, do not be far away before you do this, right? You're probably going to want to send your marches out there or your legions out there first, and then once you get close or you're right next to it, then go ahead and do it, and then you can fight it, right? So kind of ended up learning that the hard way when I was trying to do it in a video before, but it was too far, and yeah, that wasn't fun. Next one is going to be quests. So quest, you're going to go here top left, you're going to click on here, and then you're going to notice that you have your main quest, which my recommendation here is to try and do your main quests as much as possible. Now, yes, I'm still at Knights 2 on this one because I haven't upgraded Knights. I've just been focusing like hard on economy. Probably I'll end up upgrading Knights once I finish my Scholarship 2 that you saw me upgrade, but you can still go through and upgrade Knights if you wanted to earlier. I'm just kind of testing out doing this like hard min-max. I'm just focusing on economy and production, and I'm not really doing anything on kind of the military side of things because, again, I just want to test that out. But by doing your main quest, it's going to give you sculptures or heads or tokens, as we call them, for heroes. You'll get gems. You'll get other big amounts of resources. So they are good to do, right? Try and keep up with these as much as you can. Next is going to be Titan's Legacy. Now, Titan's Legacy is kind of our seasonal thing that we have here. So you end up seeing that you can have rewards that are going all the way, I think it goes to 80. Oh, I thought it was 70. So it goes to 80, right? And you can kind of get these done here. You have dailies, you have weeklies, and seasonal. The most important thing I recommend is read through everything and do as much as you can, right? Because this is something that you can really kind of fill out a day with, even pre-prepping or planning for future and upcoming days to get those things done. Next is going to be your kind of Darkling, your dark keys, right, that you're going to be able to get, right? So you can kind of see here your dark keys, and these are for searching Darkling guards, and you can open chests. I'll give you an example here. So if I go to Darkling guards from my search window, we'll go guards, I'll click search, right? It's going to pop out common, I think there's common epic elite or common elite epic, and so it'll pop these chests out. You basically have to go over there and kill the units, and then you can get these, and then you'll end up getting, right, potentially shards, or you'll get some arcane dust. You'll get some common chests for your alliance too as well. So these are important to try and do daily, and or one of the other, so there's kind of two options here. You can either go do them solo if you're strong enough, or you can do them with other players, Or 3, if you have a stronger player that is going around and attacking, let's say, tiers or chests that are a higher tier, you can just go and send a troop out to gather those. So one of the things you want to pay attention to is if your alliance has a marker that is set, right? Where, like, if I click free until, right? So you can say free until 9:45. Most likely what happened is they probably cleared this, and then you were able to go and do these superior dark chests, right? Which are the highest tier currently. And so this is something that if they clear this out, you just have to send a unit over here and you basically walk. It takes a couple seconds to grab, walk, couple seconds to grab, walk, and you just kind of rinse and repeat. So that's one way that you can do it. Usually your alliance would mark that similarly to what they did, or if you have like a dedicated group chat where you're kind of posting chords in. Next one is going to be talking about farms. So farms for me are, I see them as being valuable, but it really is based on each individual's amount of time. If you're asking me how many farms I think you need, I would say anywhere from like 1 to 3. And again, that's based on, important here, how much free time you actually have. Because when you're leveling farms, the idea is that you're probably going to kind of do almost what I'm doing with my main, which is you're just going to kind of go full eco. And then you might eventually end up upgrading your tier of troops at certain points. So that way, if you're doing fights with your main, you can have your main can gain more merits from it, and or also when you're transferring resources. So there is a hard cap to the amount of resources that a player can receive per week, but with a farm, you can make sure that your main is hopefully hitting that max amount that they can get per week. And what this allows for you to also do from your main is you can then look to start doing things like, well, instead of having to gather as many resources, like instead of having to have all 5 of my legions out there gathering resources, maybe you can dedicate 1 or 2 legions to gathering gems, right? Because eventually, if you are getting enough resources in to kind of sustain yourself once you get to the end game, or at any point in time, even if it's early enough, you can focus on gathering gems, which are going to help you invest more into VIP and getting that to max a lot sooner. And then eventually, once you get your VIP max, now you can start spending gems on anything. Training troops, healing, policies, maxing out policies super fast when season starts, etc., right? Or just progressing, I should say, right? Next, let's talk about gathering. So we kind of only have 2 things left here. So for me on gathering, my general view, and I know I mentioned it before, but my main view on gathering is focus, and again, because this is a free-to-play guide, focus on gathering first, and we're talking you're gathering heroes, doing just general gathering, right? And then, of course, doing your PvE with your gathering heroes. This is the big one, right? So when you're going out and gathering and you're doing your PvE, right, you want to go out and be attacking your Darkling patrols with your gathering heroes. You do not need to necessarily use others because, like we said, the faster that you upgrade your gathering heroes levels, the deeper and sooner you'll dive into their gathering trees, which is just going to help you progress your accounts that much faster. So doing those things, I think, is going to be really important when you're talking about investing in Earth's Grace talents, which are going to increase the amount of EXP you get from gathering tiles, along with having your gatherers attack Darkling patrols so that way you can gather faster. Right? These are all things that are going to help you progress your account and develop that much sooner to get you to that kind of mid-late game stage. And then the very last one, which is kind of a personal note, when it comes to kind of alliances that you want to try and join. Because remember, we're talking about you going in and playing as an individual, not really kind of having anyone that you're going into a kingdom with. My recommendation is to somewhat try to climb the ladder, but do not worry about having to be in the number 1 alliance. As long as you are in an active alliance that has maybe some players that are making some purchases, but you're able to get max helps within, let's just say less than maybe like an 8 to 10 hour, 8 to 12 hour period, right? We're talking once you kind of get to higher ranges where you're like looking for 20 plus helps, essentially. And as long as that alliance is active, right? And you notice that they're doing forts or they're going out and doing dark chests, and you're noticing that those are there for you to grab, right? They kind of have max player capacity or close to it, right? They're maybe good and social in chats. These are important. These are more important things to look at than just waiting or wanting to be a part of the number 1 alliance. So that's my biggest recommendation. As long as you're in a healthy, active, and socially engaged alliance, right, you're really winning at the end of the day because your benefit is trying to max out your account in the fastest and quickest way possible as a free-to-play. So that, I think, is going to do it for me on this one. I'm going to have to timestamp this out pretty hard, but I actually was able to do this under 40 minutes. So that I'm pretty excited about. With that in mind, again, I hope you guys enjoyed, right? And if there's anything maybe I missed or some things that you think, especially if there's players that have been playing for a while, I'd love to know, right? So let me know in the comments down below. Would also love to know your thoughts. If you guys like this, throw it a thumbs up. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.